It's the latest news on The Voice. Not focused on hypotheticals, PM, not considering other forms of Indigenous recognition if voice fails. Staunch advocate for global investor wealth and freedom stealers, the puppet PM Albanese, he throws a well-worn tactic at the fast-fading voice. The wheels are falling off it. They're going to have to steal it. They're going to have to pull out all the stops. I'm talking emergencies, mail-in ballots, whatever they need to do about it, just in people I know or in general conversation in passing. I always try and slip it in a bit there. It's a bit topical. I never ask what people are going to vote for. All I do is say, I'll give a bit of what I'm thinking. I always give a little bit if you're asking someone to give something back. I always say, I'm not too keen on this voice. There's a few things I don't like about it. What do you reckon about it? And some people would just go, I'm voting no or I'm voting yes. That's fine. But if they start to indicate, I'm leaning towards yes, just sort of prod them a bit with a few facts about it, a few things that are going to happen, and sort of, angle them back towards the no. But don't get, it can be, because you get frustrated with people at their lack of research and knowledge on what's going on around them. Yeah, don't fire up. I've found that during COVID. What are you wearing a mask for, you idiot? Never ever worked. So in this article, Albo turns to no profession, dodgy profession for strategies. Slight alteration to make it relevant. The Indigenous voice tricks you need to know about. Number one on a list of used car salesman tricks, obviously on the Indigenous voice tricks, is sense of urgency. So Albo is going to imply the voice is a generous one-time offer only, this week only. So Albo has warned, got an all caps, warned, no other forms of something the majority of voters did not ask for will be offered. So he's at this festival. He's wearing a Kubra. Look like he's one of us. Oh, yeah, there's Albo. Next line he says, this is a once-in-a-generation opportunity. A whole generation. How long does he think he's going to be the global investor puppet PM for Australia? Isn't a generation like 15 to 20 years? Baby boomer, Gen X, Y, whatever they decide to call each generation. Hey, maybe he knows something we don't know. He will be there for 15 years. God, could you imagine this whiny little... He's as effeminate as Justin Trudeau and this Rishi Sunak. Biden's more just elderly and just bumbling. But they're putting up... Macron. These diminutive little men. Zelensky, although he's wearing a green shirt and talks like this now, supposed to when he was a reality show star. But these whiny, effeminate men, or strong women like Jacinda Ardern, they're the best of us now. And number 3 on that list of used car dealer tricks is one they're using, hiding details within a deal. They're not going to tell us what they're going to do. Unneeded and unwanted extras. We'll find out about that if it gets up. That'll be the tag team between the voice and the public-private partnerships with the corporations and banks. I'm really turning just at this point in time, my focus onto the voice. I'm still working diligently on my Substack articles. I'm finding it's a lot more work than what I thought, but I'm putting the effort into being meticulous and accurate, trying to make sure that you can't poke holes in it. Everything is evidence-based. This is the first statement. I've got a lot more coming out. The proposed ATSI voice will enshrine in the Constitution the separation of present-day Australians distinguished by chronological ancestral presence on the land into one of 2 political statuses confirmed by offering representation to the federal parliament. So political status is a measure of your self-determination. Well, they've got greater self-determination because they can do express representations. We're still relying on implied consent. They've got express. And then I've got it's divided into the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders and the rest of us. When you make clearly worded statements that can't be dismissed, that's the best weapon for just drawing of people's attention, because they use a lot of word soup and they confuse people. Straightforward statements cuts through all that. So that's one of my main goals. Now, Albanese hasn't announced the date for the referendum yet, and I don't want to go in too early. So I'm going to be releasing each article as it gets closer, just building the case against it, building up the no case. Now, one of the aspects that the ABC News here and no politician or other news organisations are drawing attention to is the connection between the Constitution and the diggers, because that's what the diggers fought for. So I'm working on an article, pretty hard-hitting, I think, asking the question, did the diggers die so that the majority of Australians, including their descendants, were going to have a lower representation towards the government, a lower political status? I think it's worse than that. I think they're actually going to excise us off the land, but I can't prove that. That's just something that will happen over time and will be evident. But what you can prove, what they want, is greater representation. They say that it's not a veto in one of their articles online, but it is a veto. If you've got express representation, in other words, you give express consent to the laws that are made on your behalf, well, you have a veto. Implied consent, like the rest of us, we don't have a veto. So it's certainly making a connection between what the diggers fought and died for and this voice. So I'm really energised for the voice thing. This is only part one. Part two is our own veto voice, which I mentioned in my life. Oh, look, I'm so driven by that now. It's just dawned on me exactly how effective it can be. It's going to be hard to get across the line, but if the weight of the Australian population says we want a voice that represents all Australians, to make representation straight at the Parliament, straight at the executive, with veto power. Here's what you're doing. Oh, anyway, I'll just finish off with that's pretty much it for the voice part. I just want to finish off with a tirade against present-day politicians, well, dating back, say, 30 years, even a bit further, and the media hacks, is the hypocrisy of when they get out there on Anzac Day, one day of the year, and they stand there, heads bowed, a minute's silence, all the while putting all their efforts, the other 364 days of the year, against what the diggers fought for. According to them, or by their actions, everything the diggers fought for, they died and got injured for nothing. Because the diggers fought for their descendants and future Australians, whoever they may be, to have public ownership of the land, a connection to the land, and to be represented by the government. And these politicians and bankers and all these sell-out media who've been bought and paid for are facilitating a foreign incursion. It's as if foreigners, instead of turning up and enslaving us with guns and threats of killing us through a standing army, they're just doing it through impovering everybody. I was listening to 1269, and they were talking about the topic this morning was homelessness, and they reckon there's going to be an extra 400,000 homeless people by 2031. Now, all that's due to this foreign incursion and the transfer of wealth out of the country through the dividends paid on their majority shareholdings of our corporations, as well as straight up the usury and the banking system, how currency is put through the system, and how the RBA just gave them $400 billion. I mean, this kind of criminality, and yet one day of the year they turn up, they go, oh, dude, listen to the bugle, and stand there, side by side with people whose ancestors died, as though they're with us. And these puppets they're not just ambivalent to they are actively against, that they've set themselves and vicariously their families, because their families are the beneficiaries of all the wealth they're getting from these global investors. They've set themselves and vicariously their families against Australians and their families. This is a war. This voice is just one part of it. So we have to make sure that we get a no on this. That's stage one. Oh, if we can just stop them stealing it, that's the only way they can do it. Just prevent them. I've got a few other strategies I'm also working on, and I know other people are working on this as well, which is good, but I'm going to be doing my thing and putting that out there as best as I can. Hopefully, I'm only getting 500 or 600 views, but occasionally, on like that one on Rumble, I got 40,000 views. You hit the right note. That's what I aim for. It's just that moment in time, that video, that article I'm going to put up on Substack, it just gets to as many people as possible to make a difference. Because, you know, I've mentioned before, I've got 3 kids. I don't want them to be indentured servants to these foreigners that they're never going to meet. And they're never going to come here. Like, they've got no connection to us at all, this land or our families, and they want to own it all through nothing more than they're psychopaths. They're just mentally deranged. But think about what goes on inside their heads. You know, they're nothing more. They try to portray themselves as godlike. Fuck off. These guys are just humans like us. They burp, belch, emit odours, fart, do shits that stink, just like us. They're nothing more than us. They're not our superiors in any way, except in their demented minds. All right, I'm getting a bit worked up here. Anyway, I've got a lot more work coming up. If I go a bit quiet for a week or two, like I said, it takes a lot of effort to get these Substack articles exactly right, because I really wanted to get that 40,000 view spike every 10th presentation or video, or even longer. I don't care, as long as I can just get it out there. That's what I'm working towards. All right, that's it for this one.